Well, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to call this last meeting of 2023 of the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee to order. Do we have any regrets, Madam Secretary?
Not that I'm aware of. We may have some people running late, though.
Okay, good. Well, I would like to welcome Councillor Jonathan McNeice, who is kind of doing a double act with Councillor Kathy Duddock. Today he's sort of in training and he's going to shadow her, and they're going to vote the same way, and just once, yes, and not in opposition to each other. So anyway, welcome, Jonathan. I'm sure you will enjoy your time on this committee, and we look forward to your input. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest with respect to any matter before the committee today? No? Good. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting. These were circulated to everybody. Were there any errors or omissions? George, thank you. George has moved the adoption of the minutes as circulated. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. I should just remind everybody as we get into work that we are an advisory committee and we make recommendations to council, and that will be dealt with at the Planning and Development Council meeting at its meeting on Monday, January the 22nd at 6:30. Anyone wishing to delegate at that meeting should let council clerk know at least the day before the meeting, by noon the day before the meeting. And we have, I know, people who watch us live, and if they don't have a copy of the agenda, then they should go to oakville.ca under Town Hall meetings, and they can get a copy of that agenda so that they know what they're working on. And I know we have delegations today. We can have delegations from the floor. We can have delegations registered to appear virtually. And delegates are reminded they have 10 minutes to speak, and I have this handy dandy little unit here that will give them the countdown and they'll know how long they've got to speak. Okay, so our first discussion item today is a heritage permit application for 148 William Street, and that's Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll just pull up the presentation and I'll take you through it. Okay, so here we have the property at 148 William Street. It is located on the south side of William, in between Navy Street and Thomas Street. It is designated as part of the Old Oakville Heritage Conservation District. Officially, it's known as the Edward Anderson House. Some people may know it as the Sexton's Lodge. It was constructed circa 1834, but it has been associated with St. Jude's Church since 1915. So what we're here today to do is to look at a heritage permit application to replace 9 windows on the building. And so I just want to start by noting that in 2011, this committee received an application from St. Jude's Church to do a number of restoration and reconstruction elements to the house. At that point in time, Tom Murison, who is a former member of this Heritage Committee and a qualified heritage professional, completed a thorough report on the house that identified a number of structural issues, and so on. At that point in time, he did identify that the condition of the existing windows that we're looking at today was generally fair to poor, and reconstruction of those windows would be likely. And so that heritage permit was approved to reconstruct those windows, so essentially to replace them. And at that time, we were looking to pretty much match exactly what was there in terms of the wood windows. Unfortunately, the work wasn't done at that point in time. There are obviously a number of issues that can impact why construction happens and doesn't happen. And so today we're at a place here in December 2023 where the windows still haven't been addressed. And so the application before you is to replace these 9 wood windows with aluminum clad wood thermopane windows generally in a matching style. And so I'm just going to take you quickly around some of the photos of the house. This is, of course, in your application package as well. And so this is the west side of the house, so this is closer to Navy Street. So you can see these three windows all have the aluminum storms placed over top of the historic wood windows. I'd note that the windows aren't, while considered historic, are definitely not original to the building. Their exact date is unknown, but they are underneath the aluminum storms, wood sash window 2/2. And this is taking you around to the east side of the building. These three windows are actually much more shielded due to the vegetation around the property. Technically, I think in this photo you can see 4 windows, but the window in the vestibule there is not part of this application. It's the 3 windows that have the aluminum storms over top with that segmental arch on top. And then, just coming around to the front here, you can see that the front windows actually don't have the aluminum storms placed on top. And so you've always been able to really read these windows with the segmental arches on the bottom and the fully rounded top window in the wall gable. So the old Oakville Heritage Conservation District Plan, and we're still, of course, dealing with the old plan, states that deteriorated architectural features shall be repaired rather than replaced wherever possible. At this point in time for this particular application, we have determined that repair, the damage to these windows has gone past repair, and so replacement is necessary. And so in the event that we look at replacement, the new material should match the replaced material in composition, design, color, texture, and other visual qualities. New windows should closely match the historic windows in size, number of panes, frame, color, and reflective qualities of the glass. So, as I've mentioned, because the windows are in poor condition and because back in 2011 we had already approved their replacement, we haven't required the condition assessment that normally would be done under the window replacement guidelines because that existing approval was already in place to replace the windows due to their condition. So we felt we have sufficient knowledge of the condition for these windows. The proposed replacement windows are a single sash thermopane aluminum clad wood window with SDLs, which stands for simulated divided lights. And so staff have taken a very in-depth look at exactly what's being proposed. And there was a point of clarification that we weren't entirely sure on based on the specs that were submitted with the application in regards to the Muntin bars, and that's the dividing lights in each window. And so we're just being very clear that the Muntin bars should actually be a full profile, not a flat or a plastic metal grill, or sometimes as they're referred to in the window industry as lights. And sometimes those are just applied in between the 2 panes of glass. And so what we're requesting is that it be full profile and applied to the exterior of the window, because this more closely matches the character of the existing historic windows. In addition, because the front elevation windows are very prominent features of the old Oakville streetscape, staff are suggesting a conditional approval to make these 3 windows wood, not aluminum clad wood. This is partially because these are the only 3 windows in the house that currently do not have aluminum storms, but also really because this is a very important house, even though it is rather small in stature. It's very close to the street. And it's an important contributing building to the character of the Old Oakville Heritage Conservation District. And so staff have attempted to provide flexibility by recommending the approval of aluminum clad wood on the side elevations, but are requesting that the owner look at putting wood thermopane windows on that front elevation. We would also note that the wood windows would be eligible for application to the town's Heritage Grant Program, whereas aluminum clad wood generally is not supported by that program. And so the recommendation before you today is that the heritage permit application be approved subject to the Muntin bars being full profiled, fixed to the exterior, that the 3 windows on the front elevation be wood, not aluminum clad wood. In order to ensure all of this, we request that the final details on those windows be submitted to heritage planning staff for final approval before their installation. And then, of course, our heritage permit approval will expire 2 years from the date of final approval by council. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have. I do know that there are representatives from the property owner who are here to talk to you today as well. I'd like to thank the members of St. Jude's for taking the time to come today and for taking the time to meet with staff and committee members on site, as we have done actually several times this year. And so I'm at your disposal, committee. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Sue. As usual, a clear presentation. Any questions of Sue from the members of the committee? Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Sue, I wanted to ask, have other options been presented to the applicant other than the aluminum-clad wood windows for the 6 windows that are not on the front facade?
Through you, Mr. Chair, definitely a number of different options have been discussed with the applicants, especially over the past several years. We don't generally get into product specifics from the town. We can't specifically recommend or endorse any particular line or manufacturer, but we've always been available to respond to questions. And if the committee members have any suggestions, of course, they're willing, they're free to make them as well.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions of Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just with regard to the flexibility that you mentioned, what was the rationale behind saying yes for one and no for the other?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a good question. First of all, as I've noted, the 6 windows that I'm recommending to be aluminum clad wood already have aluminum storms on top of them. The 3 windows that I'm recommending remain as wood do not have aluminum storms, and so you've always been able to read them as wood. Generally speaking, it is our practice to require wood windows on historic buildings in the Heritage Conservation District. We have provided some flexibility in the past to other property owners who are building additions to their historic buildings or making changes on rear or side elevations. And so I've attempted to provide the same flexibility, maybe generously in this case, given that some of these side elevations, especially the west elevation, is still very visible from the streetscape. That's staff's rationale.
Right, Jason? Any other questions of Susan? No? Good. Is there anyone wishes to speak on behalf of the applicant? Thank you. If you would come up to the podium. And if it's 3, not necessarily 3 times 10, giving you 30 minutes, but I'm sure you'll manage your share of time. But if you could just introduce yourselves for the benefit of the secretary, please, so that that can be recorded.
Yeah, my name is Kevin Coleman. I'm the deputy warden, which is an executive function of the Church of St. Jude's, responsible with oversight for the property's programs.
Good morning, I'm Robert Clarence. I'm newly appointed as Operations Manager.
Good morning, my name is Rob Doyle. I'm the chair of the Property Committee for St. Jude's.
Good. So apart from the rector, we've got everybody who really matters down there, haven't we? Right, okay. So you've got 10 minutes.
First I would like to speak to the windows themselves, and then I would like to speak to the history of St. Jude's as a partner in the heritage programs in Oakville. As to the windows themselves, the windows we've proposed are a Pella window, and I've brought one here so that you can see it. And we'll just pop it up on the desk here. And to begin with, I'd like to dispose of the first item, which was the question of the Muntin bars. And you can see that the Muntin bars here are the putty profile, and they're full depth, and they're adhered to the window. Right? There's no grill, there's nothing, no lights, nothing like that. These are full depth. The second thing I would like to say about this window was designed by Pella in consultation with preservation architects. And so they actually modified the design. This is the successor to the Architect series. Some of you may be familiar with the Pella Architect windows. This is the successor to that. Some of the changes they made was they used period typical through construction so that these vertical pieces here actually run past the rails. That's an important, apparently an important architectural detail. The bottom rail is much wider than the center rail, which is also typical of windows that were manufactured at that time. They went to great lengths to make these windows as architecturally accurate for the periods of the late 1800s, early 1900s as possible. We note that on recent projects, such as the Niagara Parks Power Generation Museum, which was all wood windows for that restoration project of a museum, indeed, they chose this window as the restoration window. In the restoration of the King Edward Hotel in Toronto, in the floors that are being changed to condos, this is the window that was chosen for that restoration. So this window is, and there are many, many smaller residential projects now where this window is becoming increasingly attractive as an alternate. It was specifically designed so that from the street, it has exactly the same appearance as its older wood equivalent. Also, we note that the windows in the building are not original, so we're not replacing original wood windows. We're replacing windows at some point, intermediate point in the past. In terms of the building itself, we'd like to note that in the 1990s, this building was scheduled for demolition. The back half of the building had collapsed. The building was built by a local person who did not employ an architect. He simply built a cottage for his family out of scavenged materials or whatever he could buy at lowest cost. It was not a designed building. Architecturally, it's not significant architecturally in that it was kind of a mishmash of whatever he could find locally. The most significant architectural feature is the windows with the domed eyebrow shape at the top of the windows, and that we're going to preserve. We're also not planning to change at all the window surrounds on either the outside or the inside. New windows will simply fit behind the existing surround. So the profile of the windows is not being changed, and that will remain in the current wood. It's in good condition. We can restore it, repaint it, and that will all stay. From our point of view, looking at the building as a whole, St. Jude's would like to have the same windows on all three sides. We don't want to have front windows which are weathering appreciably faster than the side windows, so that as you walk up to the building, what you see on the side as you walk up is the same thing you see on the front as you walk past. So we would like to see these windows on all three sides of the building, as opposed to having a different material and a material which weathers at a different rate than the ones on the side. St. Jude's has a long history of supporting the heritage programs in Oakville. We went to great lengths, I think it was about $700 and some odd thousand to replace a slate roof on the church when there were imitation materials available, which we could have done much less expensively. On this small building, after we completed the reconstruction, we hired a period stucco person to apply original materials to the stucco on the outside of the building, and we continue to use that person to do any stucco maintenance on the building, and we plan to continue doing that. So in all other aspects, we work very hard to maintain the heritage nature of our church and of this building at 148 William. At 148 William is currently a tenanted building, so we have a tenant inside. So we want to make sure that we offer the tenant the highest level of comfort and to make the building as attractive as possible for our tenant as well. We want to preserve the quality of life of the tenant. And we think that's best done by having all the windows of the same construction, the same operation, and the same thermal qualities. What else have I missed on this? Anything else I've missed? So our request then is that the recommendation which is put forward to council allows for this window, which we believe to be a superior product, on all three sides, in that it maintains the exterior view from the street. It's indistinguishable for passers-by, and it allows us to have all the buildings on the same maintenance program and aging at the same rate. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. You've got 3 minutes left, so good for you. Does anyone else wish to add to that? No?
No.
Right, good, thank you. Any questions now of the delegates? Jason? Susan?
Thank you for coming in, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in today to explain the windows. Just for my understanding, obviously that's a square profile window. Are you looking to use that profile in all of the windows?
Each window will be made to exactly match, sorry.
So I'm looking at the side elevation. Obviously, the side elevation windows have the curve. It looks
Yes.
like it's a square window with a wood infill, or is it actually the window itself?
No, the window itself will be domed will be
Okay.
curved at the top. And for that reason, the top of the window will not open. It will only open at the bottom, which is also the case today. Also, this framing is not accurate. For the window, we'll be preserving exactly the same panes that the window has today, so that it will be the same. The windows each have to be individually created because the dimensions of each one are slightly different.
I think that was my question. And well, you've mentioned the color change. Are you looking to go, it says to black from the cream that's
Yes.
currently there?
Long-term, we have interest in perhaps returning the building to its original white color. The current color with being cream doesn't allow us much flexibility, but a black window allows us much more flexibility in going forward. But we note that the color of the window is not normally an issue for the Heritage Committee, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, Jason, thank you. Any other questions from any other member of the committee? No, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. You just don't go away, though. You can stand down. You can go and have a seat, but please stay with us.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And Councillor Gittings, I'm relying on you to become visible. I can see you, but can you hear me? David, can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Good. So if you want to speak at any time, make sure that you're waving something around that's good. See, if you do that, I'll definitely see you. And now
Perfect.
the other screen, I've got you going off to infinity. It's really a neat trick with it. Okay.
And beyond.
Yes, and beyond. Okay, good. So we've had the presentation from the staff and from the applicant. Is there anyone else in the chamber who wishes to speak to this matter? No? Good. So we're confined to the board. Discussion. Brenda?
I just have a question of staff, a clarification.
Yes?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sue, could you just confirm the last statement that was made about color on the windows, what the guidelines are for that? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, generally we feel color is a reversible kind of option for heritage buildings, and so we don't have a set color palette. Generally speaking, we may take a heritage permit for significant color changes to a building. It's really more to document the change and to make sure that, I would say that, wildly out of character colors are not being introduced into the Heritage Conservation District, like neon green, et cetera. But for this particular application, staff have no issues with any of the colors that have been suggested, either the existing or the proposed.
Okay. Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Sue, and the presentation from St. Jude's. St. Jude's has been a wonderful custodian of the heritage building in the past and through the present, given the recent replacement of the slate roof with the same materials and detailing. close to the historic original and at a substantial cost, so that's wonderful to see. A truly wonderful, laudable example of heritage restoration and replacement of like with like, showing commendable stewardship and dedication to the heritage principles. Given the previous commitment to heritage detail, I am both surprised and uncomfortable with this request for aluminum-clad windows on one facade, the front facade. There is a continuity of experience of the building. If you look on page 34 of our presentation for my fellow committee members, there's a view from the side of the building that shows the windows in line with each other. They're almost on the same plane, and you experience them at the same time visually. This is not a Heritage Gold seal of window restoration and replacement in this heritage field, the aluminum-clad window. There are other window manufacturers that provide a factory finish for wood with a 15-year warranty on exterior wood finish. So you actually have manufacturers out there, I'm not sure about the cost, probably similar cost potentially, but that provide an even greater warranty for finish of windows. And a quick Google search will show that there's been a rather large class action lawsuit alleged against the aluminum-clad windows that allege that they leak and cause wood rot. So I'm happy to support staff's recommendations in general, except for two things. One is color, as Brenda brought up, because I do think that color is important in this case, and the replacement of 6 of the 9 historic windows with aluminum-clad wood thermopane windows I would not support. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, just Jerry. I would say with respect to colour, that's a matter we've delegated through the delegation bylaw to staff. So it would be unusual if we got ourselves into colour discussions at this stage or at any stage. I'm sorry, Kevin, we're confined to the board. Or was there a point of information that in a response to your comment? No.
It's a point of information.
Yes, we could receive a point of information.
The class lawsuit application referred to was launched in 2009 for the original series of Proline windows. And those windows, Pella was in the process of resolving those through its warranty program, but there was a group in the US that sought further enrichment through a class action suit. Since that time, and as a result of that, the treatment of the wood in the windows has been substantially upgraded. The wood in the windows is now treated and further sealed so that even if water were to enter in the new design, although it should not in the new design, it would not result in wood rot. The wood is sealed inside. So this is, although that was true at a point in time in 2009, it's no longer an issue, and there hasn't been any new class action suit or any new series of complaints that we're aware of wood rot in the new series of windows.
Yep. Okay, thank you. I thought I'd picked that up from your presentation, that this was a new series of windows that were designed to meet a higher standard, so that's why I've permitted that information. Any further discussion around the table? Right, can we? Oh, there's a hand up. See, I don't see the yellow hand as well as I see the waving hand. Councillor Gittings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Well, first of all, Jerry, thank you very much for talking about the being the caretakers. It's an incredible downtown landmark historically, and I love the way you phrase that. Susan, in terms of having a mixture of the aluminum clad and the recommendation of the wood, do you have any concerns at all in terms of the appearance, the look, that they will match as well as we would all like?
Through you, Mr. Chair, No, staff aren't particularly concerned about that. I mean, as I've noted in the recommendation, we do want to see the final details for any windows to be installed before they're installed. At this moment in time, of course, the applicants don't have specs for those for wood windows because this hasn't been determined either by staff or by this committee. Of course, it will be determined by council. And so, I'll be happy to work with them, but I do feel that there will be a very similar appearance. In terms of where, though, I don't deny that there would likely be maintenance required on those front 3 windows that may not be required on the side windows. What I would note, though, is that repairable generally means that you can fix something, and maintenance-free generally means that you have to replace something. And so, and this isn't always the case, but I do feel that the wood windows would provide a very long wearing and appropriate and energy efficient, because we are still certainly supporting thermopane windows here, solution to what their needs are for the building and for their tenant. And so, yes, there may be some maintenance required on the front that wouldn't be required on the side, but I do feel that should that maintenance be undertaken in an appropriate timeframe, really, the appearance should be very similar on all elevations.
Okay, thank you. David, is that all right? Good.
That is, thank you, Chair.
Jason?
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the maintenance question. This building requires constant maintenance and it's surrounded in wood. The windows themselves are surrounded in wood. What is the condition of those? Are they impacted? Or what's going to happen next? So we'll have an application to replace that with aluminum and the shutters to, again, I'm just concerned.
Is that a question?
No, I'm just, in terms of the question is, what is the condition of the wood around the windows?
Susan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do believe that actually is part of the application in the restoration plan, which shows up on page 19 of the application. The applicants have provided some details about their desire to add some additional insulation into the wall cavities while they're opening, to make good the stucco, and to repair and to repaint the wood trim. And so, from this application, it certainly does appear that they are being excellent stewards of the remainder of the building as well, in trying to make improvements while the window cavities are open. And so that is not a concern for staff at this time.
Yeah, it was my understanding of the reading of it that they're going to insulate around them because, as we all know, 30 or 40% of the heat loss is in fact the fitting of the window, around the window, and it's all of that. Jerry?
Since we're discussing around the table and we're going back and forth to staff, I'd like to continue that trend we've opened up, that little door and opening. And I wanted to ask Sue, wouldn't it make sense to go either one way on all the windows or the other? So either we have them all wood or we have them all aluminum clad. Because right now, you will notice a difference in the windows. It is visually notable, 2 different types of windows on this small building, because you do experience the building from the angle. So the 2 facades are seen simultaneously. So I wanted to ask, what is the logic for dividing, having 3 in wood and 6 in clad? Would it not make sense to either go fully wood clad, which is the gold, fully wood window, which is the gold seal and heritage detailing, or compromise and do the aluminum clad? The other thing is too that, we all here, we're all very happy, and we understand that the applicant has done wonderful things and has held that gold seal in the restoration and maintenance of the building. So we appreciate that, and we have, a wish to make things easier. But I think we have to be consistent in our principles. And this particular house just speaks of one type of detailing rather than two detailing on one little house. So would it not make sense to either do one or the other rather than divide them by two? I don't understand the logic, so I'm asking the question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's certainly up to this committee what recommendation they want to make to council. If you feel that that's a more reasonable solution to propose one or the other, that is certainly your prerogative. The recommendation before you today in the staff report is a sincere attempt to find a compromise to still maintain best practices in heritage conservation for the principal elevation of this building, generally speaking, because we do always prefer to see wood windows on historic buildings. However, as I've noted, right now the elevations actually don't read the same, simply because those aluminum storms aren't placed over top of the front elevation. They certainly may have been at one point in time, excuse me, but they aren't at the moment. And so I think it's a difference in opinion here. Staff have tried to arrive at a compromise. If the committee feels that it's better to have one or the other, that's certainly your prerogative.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Susan. So that's good. Now, can we confine it to the board? Kerry?
I just have a concern. I think we're setting potentially a dangerous precedent with this. Frankly, based on this application, I would put an application in for King's Castle to replace all my windows because I can't see through my windows from December till March or April. And I'm quite sure that if I made an application to replace them all with Pella windows, I would then be able to see through my windows. So again, I just feel that, and of course I can't see through my windows because of all the condensation, even though they all have brand new storms, which I spent a great deal of money on. But it doesn't resolve the issue. So again, I think this is a dangerous precedent that potentially we're being asked to make. What's going to stop every other heritage house in Oakville saying, I need these new Pella windows? Because I might be the first one in line.
You're slightly different because you're a Part 4 house. This is not Part 4, it's Part 5. And I think the windows do need to be replaced because they're deteriorating. So it's not just a question of will we lose the condensation, but yeah, I hear you. Is anyone prepared to put before us some kind of motion so that we can bring this to a head? The staff have made a recommendation, and the recommendation is that we have wood on the front elevation and that we have approved. This is not an innovative material. This is a material that we have approved for use elsewhere in the district for the two side elevations. So that's the staff recommendation. Russ?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to support the staff recommendation.
Okay, so Russ has made a motion that supports the staff recommendation, and that's now the motion on the table in front of us. So any further discussion around that motion? Jerry?
I believe, Mr. Chair, that I had said I was happy to support the staff's recommendation in general, except for replacing 6 of the 9 historic windows with aluminum clad. So I think I had a bit of a motion on the floor.
I didn't
No?
hear that as a motion, Jerry. I
okay.
heard that as a motion, and
Okay,
if you don't
okay.
agree with that, then you have the opportunity
All
to
right.
vote against it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So we now do have a motion on the floor, and the motion is to support the staff recommendation. Is there any further discussion around that motion? Is there anyone opposed to that motion? 1, 2, 3. Now, I can only get one down there, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are, help me here, Madam Secretary, we've got 11. I think we're a full house, so we're 11. Yep. Sorry, I wasn't voting. I was just trying to hear you. Anyone opposed to the staff recommendation? Raise their hands. 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 against the motion.
Yeah,
So the staff recommendation then does not carry.
correct.
Right, so the staff recommendation does not carry. So that means somebody needs to give me another motion. So just to try and narrow this thing down, because we've had 2 positions put, the staff position and then we had the applicant's position. And the applicant's position would be essentially the staff recommendation, except that B would be struck from that. That's not an amendment to anything. That's what the motion would look like. It would be A, that the Mountain bars are full profile. That's a comment from staff. But the B part would be taken out. And
Sorry,
the C part would become
Mr.
B.
Chair, would it be helpful if I put what you want up on the screen for everybody to see?
Well, it's partly why I'm doing it this way, because it's sitting in front of them. Everybody can see it. But if you put that up on the screen, that would be really helpful. So while we're waiting for that, what I'm doing is we've had the staff position in front of us. We've got the applicant's position in front of us.
Mr. Chair, what you really want to say is all the windows are going to be wood.
No, that's
No?
not at this stage. Well, it could be. If somebody, I'm just trying to walk you through it, that B would be changed. B would be changed.
True.
So either B, so if you guys are trying to manufacture a motion, it's easier if you work within the template that you've got in front of you.
Well, I
right?
think that's
Because all the
the only
boilerplate's up there.
That's the only answer then. If
So it
turned
could
down,
be-
it has to be wood.
No,
So that,
it could be aluminum all round as the applicant has
or
proposed.
fiberglass or something else.
So in other words, we're looking, I was trying to do it fairly. Staff have said A, and we've said. So the motion that I'm looking for is the applicant's motion, because we haven't dealt with the applicant's application. We've dealt with the staff's recommendation with respect to it. So, or that B would be changed. Again, it would say that all the windows be wood. Okay? So work around that. Jerry, you wanted to work around that with me.
Yes, I propose a new motion for B, that all the windows be wood
Okay? So you're
Simple.
changing to all wood.
and keep the A and C the
Yeah.
same.
And it's easier if we work within the structure we've got, because all the boilerplate's there. So Jerry now has made a motion that all of the windows be wood. Okay?
To clarify the motion.
Yeah.
You would take B and strike the last 4 words from B.
Yep.
And change
No,
3
no,
windows
they
to
would
all
say
windows.
It would
And
be,
it would state that
That all-
that the 9 windows.
yes. That the 9 windows be wood.
All windows.
All windows be
All
wood.
windows.
Very simple. All windows be wood.
But that is not correct, because one of them does not have to be wood on the house, right?
Of the 9.
The 9.
The
That's why
application's the 9.
You should say the 9, you should say 9, not all.
Thank you, Brenda. That's a better clarification.
How many are there?
9.
There's only 9.
We're only doing the 3 faces. We're not dealing with the rear.
Right, but one of the windows in there is not historic.
Yeah. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. So at this point, if you're looking at adopting even part of this, you have already voted against it.
Yep.
So you can't now go back and kind of reconsider that, because what you should do is have a motion that just strikes, that you accept this, but you change what you want out of it. Don't vote this whole motion down.
Yeah, but
then you can't.
the staff recommendation,
It's contradictory, right? Because if you just voted against this whole thing, but now you're gonna pick pieces of it and adopt it, which we can't do.
well, the staff recommendation is not the motion. The motion that was made looked like that. It took the staff recommendation words and it changed them. It didn't pass. Now we're saying that the heritage permit application for the replacement of windows as attached in that report be approved, subject to that the Muntin bars are full profile, that the 9 windows in the application are wood. However you need to do it. What we're trying to say is that the boilerplate at the head end is fine. We're still going to look at the Muntins. The details of the final details will be submitted by staff, 2-year application period or approval period, but that the 9 windows should be wood. So however that comes out, you write it up for us, and that's what we're dealing with.
She needs a new motion. She needs a new motion.
Yeah.
So who's moving that?
But
Mr. Chair?
That's Jenny. It's Jenny's motion.
Would you like me to read the entire motion for you? Yes.
B's the only point of disagreement with the wording, or not disagreement, change that would be needed to make the new motion, right, Brenda? It's a new, yeah, they're all new motions.
My concern is that you've already voted against A and C and the bulk of the motion.
No.
No, we voted against B.
We voted against B, yeah.
But somebody moved the staff recommendation, which is the whole thing.
Yep.
And that failed.
Yep.
Yes.
This is a new recommendation.
But now you can't go back and accept parts of it. Does anybody follow what I'm saying?
No, you amend it.
It's a new motion.
But then you should have amended it from the beginning.
No, but there was no motion.
No motion.
See, the staff recommendation is not a motion. The motion that came from Russ was the staff recommendation
That was
would
the
be
motion on the floor.
cut and paste and become a motion.
Andrew is coming down here.
That all 9 windows be wood.
So just leave the, if you just take the text that's there, if you put it back, change 3 to 9. Large language.
Just put what he said, all 9 windows be wood.
And then take out from the comma to the semicolon.
Yep. Yep. There you go. That's a whole new motion.
I would take out the not aluminum clad.
Yes, I would take that
Take
out.
out not aluminum clad windows.
So Jerry's making this motion and she's saying, take out the not aluminum clad wood as well. Just
Right.
that B will be that the 9 windows be wood. Okay?
It's not this one.
Thank you for the little elves
Yeah.
helping.
Russ, you wanted to speak to that?
Well, yes, do, Mr. Chair, but I'm concerned.
Push your button.
Can't hear you.
Oh. I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm concerned about the impact on the costs if this change,
That's not our,
which seems to not have been discussed whatsoever. And, you know, that somehow saying that the Heritage Fund will, you know, assist in the cost, that's a couple of $1,000s as a grant.
happens, everybody.
Notionally.
is gonna say.
And I just think it's irresponsible on our part to make a motion without consideration of the impact of the cost.
I think the motion is quite proper, Russ.
Oh, the
How
motion
it's
itself
dealt
is
with
proper,
by the
yeah.
committee, based on considerations such as you have raised, is the second step
Yeah.
in the process, okay? The first step is there's a motion that Jerry is making, and that motion says, essentially the staff recommendation, with the exception that B says that the 9 windows be wood.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I would say remove the not aluminum
That's why
clad.
I said stop. The 9 windows be wood, full stop. So that's the motion, okay? Now, we've got to that as a point of agreement, that that's the motion. Now, if there's no further discussion, we'll ask, is there anyone opposed to that motion? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that means that that motion carried.
Chair doesn't vote. Chair doesn't vote.
The chair does vote. The chair does vote. But it didn't matter. So that's the motion. That's the recommendation that goes forward to council. And I will remind you that it's a council decision. If the applicant wishes to delegate, then they should let the clerk know at least 24 hours before the meeting. And the meeting is on a Monday, I think I said, in which case you should, by Friday lunchtime, have told the clerk that you wish to delegate. Yes, it's Monday, January the 22nd. Okay, good. Jerry?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add a response to Russell's comment, which I think, you know, we all understand and appreciate, and all of the applications that come forward to this committee. So it's not just to this one, but that there's an opportunity for a heritage grant application, and we give up to $15,000 for appropriate heritage restoration. So, you know, you're more than welcome to apply for that, which would mitigate some of the costs if there is a difference in cost between the wood and the color wood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I asked for discussion and then I called the question. I did. And we voted.
So just to raise a point of order, Mr. Chair, I do believe that the process for that vote was rushed. I don't believe there was full discussion, and I object.
Well, I think when you look at the tape, I did ask if there's any further discussion on the motion. That is the motion. We understand the motion. Russ gave us his input. I asked if there was any discussion. I then said, are we ready to call the question? We called the question. So the motion was, I believe, properly processed. Okay. That was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Mr. Chair, might it be appropriate to take a 5-minute recess?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think we need to use that. We need a motion to recess.
Let's just wait. It's been suggested that we take a 5 or 10-minute recess. If I've got a motion for that. So it's 10:24, 10:35 at the latest, we will reconvene. Okay, everybody, we'll reconvene. And we're on to item 4.2, which is a heritage permit application for 1042 6th line. And that is Sue again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a heritage permit application for 1042 6th line, a property that some of you may be familiar with from its designation back in 2017, but some of you have also visited recently as well as part of the site visit for this particular application. I certainly encouraged people to come out to the site when we were offered the ability to get on it, as it is an interesting site that really isn't visible in large part from the roadway other than the impressive entrance drive. And so you can see the in the white and black map, you can see our grayed out property area there. And the map that's inset into the corner there actually shows in the dotted lines, the entire area that is impacted by the overall development. And so I would just remind everyone today that while this development certainly does span over 5 different properties, we're looking at the impacts to the designated property at 1042 6th line. So the property is a significant cultural heritage landscape. Heritage attributes, this is just a high-level summary, include the entrance drive from 6th line, including the drive circle that comes around in front of the house. There are probably more trees designated on this site than any other cultural heritage landscape in the town. Those trees include the Norway spruce trees that line the entrance drive, a number of different trees in the arboretum area, and other specimen trees located around the site as well. There's also an arts and crafts era residence, and then the designation bylaw also includes views to and from the residence, both kind of up and down the entrance driveway, but also through to the arboretum lands as well. What is not included in the designation bylaw is the cedar hedge that runs along a portion of the property, the garage building, which is not a historic structure, and the pool. And so the heritage permit application before you today really looks at a number of impacts on the landscape of the property. The historic residence, the arts and crafts style residence, is not proposed to be removed or touched in any way. However, there is proposed construction of 3 different units that fall either wholly or partially onto the designated property. That's block G and H, which are located to the north side of the historic residence, and then an 8-unit building known as block F that kind of is located in the general arboretum area. And so in order to construct these buildings, there are, of course, a number of impacts to the designated heritage attributes of the property. The Norway spruce trees and the opening of the Y, which is the kind of the formal opening of the entrance drive towards the residence, those are proposed to be removed. The driveway circle will be removed. There is the potential injury to several of the designated trees, including the ginkgo biloba tree, which is a very large tree that's located just to the kind of north of the residence, and the beech tree, which is in the entrance circle, and to potentially impact some of the Norway spruce along the entranceway itself, not just in the Y. There are also a number of trees proposed to be removed from the arboretum lands. And so for those of you who weren't able to visit the property or just need a refresher, this is the historic residence. As I've noted, it's not being touched, but what you can see here is the drive circle opening, and that is proposed to be removed. There are a lot of maps in both your heritage permit application, the report, and the number of the appendices. This is the map taken from the town's conservation plan, which is in place for the property. And it shows the different areas that we've divided the property into to help us understand the relationship of some of these heritage attributes a little bit more. And so area 1 is the entranceway. And so that includes those Norway spruce trees that line the driveway and open into the Y shape. You can see the widening of it there. Area 2 is generally the area around the residence, but it also kind of wraps around the side of the Y shape. Area 3 is the arboretum lands, and so that's where a number of the different specimen trees are included. And then area 4 is the valley lands, and so this is the land that comes down the creek system, and so it includes a very steep slope and many trees of different species and varieties. So I've just talked about those conservation areas. This is a map that shows some more of the heritage attributes that are specifically referenced in the designation bylaw, including an area that we haven't really talked about, the terrace lands, which are technically part of the valley lands because they actually run down that slope. There's a terraced area. That area won't be impacted by the proposed development. But you can see here a number of the trees. We've got our formal entrance circle in our residence. And the last map I want to show you is just a map of the trees on the property. And because there are so many trees here, we wanted to make clear in the conservation plan that there's kind of a difference in some of the importance of some of the trees on this property. And so we have type 1 trees and type 2 trees. So type 1 trees have been specifically identified. Those are the ones that are identified for you on this map here. And any other tree on the site would then be identified as a type 2 tree. And really the type 2 trees generally fall into the valley lands. Their value more is a collection rather than individual species. And so this is kind of a scoped aerial site plan of the development area, showing primarily 1042 6th line, but also it does show some of the properties adjacent to the south, so that you can see where blocks G and H are. Block G being 2 units, block H being 3, and then we've got block F, which is our 8-unit block. Along the landscaped area that's now proposed to replace the entrance driveway, kind of south of that, you've got blocks D and block C. And so I can flip back and refer to these mapping images anytime we like as I go through some of the impacts identified by staff as part of this proposal. The other thing that I just want to note, which wasn't included, I believe, in the heritage permit application, but was included in the planning applications for this document and is included in your staff report, is also the underground servicing for the property. And the only reason that we've identified this is because of its potential impacts on a number of the trees. Normally, staff aren't particularly concerned about servicing, stormwater management. Most of these facilities are underground and well hidden. However, in this case, the significant underground disturbances that would be required could have a potential negative impact on a number of the trees in these areas. Just to take you very quickly, these are the proposed townhouse block designs. So look, what we're looking at here is block F. And here we have block G and block H. All of these designs are included in the heritage permit application package. But really what we wanted to discuss was the assessment. And so I've divided it into several different impacts. And so what we're looking at, first of all, is the impact on the designated trees of the area. And these are generally the type 1 trees. And so proposed for removal are the Norway spruce trees, which compose the opening of the Y in the formal entrance circle. So that's trees 1138 to 1154 and 1183 to 1187. There is an arborist map included at the back of the package that includes all of these tree numbers. So it is in your application package, but I do apologize. Those numbers are probably very small and hard to read. In the Arboretum area, there are a number of trees proposed to be removed, including a Douglas fir, Scots pine, red oak trees, and 1 sweet cherry tree. The tree number that I have highlighted there, tree 1180, I highlight because it was part of the minutes of settlement for the appeal to this heritage designation bylaw that the town committed to not opposing the removal of this one specific tree as part of a future heritage permit application. And so while I've noted it as part of the removals that are being proposed, I would say that this would be the one tree that staff would not be opposed to being removed, given the previous existing agreement. There are a number of potential injuries to trees, and of course, injuries are always attempted to be ameliorated by good arborist practices, but really nothing is guaranteed. In the residence area, there have been identified potential injuries to the ginkgo biloba, and which is near the historic building. In the entry area, the American beech tree, and also in the entry area, the Norway spruce. That line both sides of the entrance drive, and that's due to those subsurface servicing works that I just showed you, the yellow highlight on that map. And the Norway spruce on the south side of the entrance drive due to the proximity of the construction of blocks C and D, which technically are not located on our subject property, but would be directly adjacent to our heritage property and may have impacts on the heritage attributes of the designated property. So, in addition to impacts on trees, we've also identified the following impacts to views that are designated in the heritage bylaw. The laneway view looking towards the house, we have impacts to the Norway spruce, the removal of the driveway circle, and potential impacts to the beach. The laneway view looking from the house, again, the Norway spruce are impacted. in the driveway, and then there's the removal of the Norway spruce and the Y opening, removal of the driveway circle as it exists, and potential impacts to the beech tree. And then the arrival view, which is the view of the driveway circle house from the opening point of the Y. And of course, the Y opening is being removed itself, as is the driveway circle and the potential impacts to the beach. Overall, staff really would like to emphasize that this property has been designated as a design landscape, and it's got both formal and informal planting schemes. It's considered a picturesque landscape plan reflective of the arts and crafts movement. The connections between the house and the design landscape that surround it are negatively impacted from the crowding on the site due to the 3 proposed building blocks. And the removal of important heritage attributes will diminish the overall cultural heritage value of this property. Cultural heritage landscapes are not just a collection of individual elements that are dotted around a property. The relationships between them are incredibly important. And really, they need to be taken into consideration, and any future development should be carefully designed to conserve as many of them as possible. And so the staff recommendation before you today is that the heritage permit application be denied. There was an additional note in the staff report that does go on to clarify staff are not recommending or stating in any way that development cannot happen on this site. What we are saying is that this particular proposed development is not appropriate for the cultural heritage value conservation of this particular property, but we would welcome working with any property owner to try to come up with a development proposal that allows for intensification on the site while still conserving the cultural heritage value and heritage attributes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm available for any questions you or the committee might have.
Good. Thank you, Susan. Good. And I think a number of us went out to the site visit. In fact, quite a large number of us went out to the site visit and had a good look at it. Okay, any questions of Sue? Susan.
Regarding the stormwater management, surely that would have to exist no matter what development goes in there? You know, however the development is adjusted or altered, they'd still have to make that same run.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as that's certainly not my area of expertise, it may be possible for there to be different drainage on the site. All I know is that it certainly has been identified by our planning services staff as a potential concern. And you know, given a different proposed development to look at, I'm sure there would be different solutions to look at for the servicing and for the stormwater management as well. And so I certainly can't say that this is the only solution. All I can say is that this particular proposed solution will have a negative impact on the trees in the area.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Susan. I just have 2 questions. When was it designated as a cultural heritage landscape? And then also, what is the distance from the line of Norway spruce to the C and D? That's one of your concerns, is that C and D you feel is too close to the line of Norway spruces, even though it's not on the heritage property. I was just wondering what that setback is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the first question about the heritage designation. So thinking back, the notice of intention to designate, I believe, was issued in the fall of 2017 and was appealed by the property owner. The designation bylaw itself was appealed after a minutes of settlement was agreed to in 2020. And so the designation bylaw for the cultural heritage landscape has been in place since that time. The cultural heritage landscape conservation plan followed that, and I believe has been in place since either 2021 or early 2022. I'd have to double check the dates on that. I would note that since the passing of, or the acceptance of that cultural heritage landscape conservation plan, we have made changes to that conservation plan policy, which was formerly a bylaw. And so that actually came to the committee earlier this year. If you'll remember, we looked at, and this is just as a policy issue, whether or not the Cultural Heritage Landscape Conservation Plan bylaw should in fact be a bylaw or a town policy. The determination was made that it should be a town policy. The only impacts that makes to existing conservation plans is that it removes the ability of the town to pursue charges under the conservation plan for works undertaken without approval. The town can still prosecute under the Ontario Heritage Act, as they have always been able to. So it was considered kind of a redundant feature of the bylaw. And it also removed the requirement for ongoing 5-year monitoring of cultural heritage landscapes as well. So that was the difference. Everything else in the conservation plan still does apply. And so then to go to the question about blocks C and D and their potential impact on the Norway spruce on the laneway, it has been identified as a potential concern by the town's forestry staff, the town's own arborists. And so while I don't have those exact measurements, I can relate that it certainly was a concern related by town staff with expertise in trees and root systems, that there may be a negative impact to the south side of the entrance laneway, those Norway spruce, due to the proximity of those buildings and their projecting, I believe they have a projecting kind of rear balcony as well. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Any other questions of Susan? Brenda?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask a few questions about the house itself, the Arts and Crafts House. Could you tell me roughly how many square feet it is?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information. Through you, Mr. Chair. The applicants may.
Okay. The reason I ask is through the proposal we see in front of us, there will be no garage. And I note that there appears to be 2 parking spots dropped in front of the house. My first question is that typical to allow parking like that in front of the heritage home? And the second would be, I have a concern about what we end up with in terms of devaluing the homes, because if it's a large, it appears to be a larger home. If it does not have a garage, and we know that they can't go back because of where the conservation protection line is, what does that do to the willingness of a future owner to preserve and maintain the home?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know if I can answer all of that other than to say that, I mean, the designation, first of all, only applies to the exterior of the home, which is why we don't really usually take the interior square footage. Mm-hmm. But you're right, it is a fairly substantial looking home. Mm-hmm. In regards to the proposed parking spaces located in front of the residence, is that typical? Generally speaking, no. We prefer not to have vehicles blocking visual access to a designated heritage attribute. I mean, the impacts just directly on the building, but also on the views within the site, I think certainly may exist. And in terms of what that may do to the future value of the property, again, I'm not an expert in property valuation, but certainly garages are generally seen as desirable. I would suggest maybe the loss of the garage may not be a positive impact on the property, although I certainly can attest to how the garage is currently being used. Mm-hmm. They may not use it. They certainly have a very significant drive circle to access as well that provides parking that doesn't really impact the view lines to and from the house as well, because parking tends to happen along the opening of the Y, as we saw when we were on site. But that will not be an option under the proposed development.
May I ask a follow-up question? Just to follow up on that, all of the other townhomes on the property are proposed to be condo or strata type properties, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I direct that to the applicant.
Okay, so again,
I believe it is, but I would leave it to them to confirm.
Okay, so my question then is, you would have a house that would be standalone with, I'm confused about how the house would be maintained within this community. And I guess that's not a question you can answer,
Yeah,
but thank you.
all I can say is that there are no proposed alterations to the house itself at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions of Susan? Okay, no, thank you, Susan. Now, we do have a registered delegate, Mr. Mehdi Khan. Is he, Madam Secretary, available? I can see his name with a hand raised. Can you hear us? I can see a picture.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi there, can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Everybody else can, I suppose. Okay, you've heard Sue's presentation. Please let us know what you want us to know about the application.
Sure thing. I believe the town clerk is going to put up a presentation slide that was sent to them earlier. So that can be on the screen so then I can. Excellent. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mehdi Khan. I'm the development manager at Dunbar Homes. It's my pleasure to be here today to discuss the heritage alteration application for the property at 1042 6th Line, designated on the Town of Oakville Heritage Register under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Today, we respectfully request that the staff reconsiders their position on the denial of our heritage permit application. We understand the concerns about the impact on the heritage attributes of property. However, we believe that with careful planning and execution, our proposal has minimal impact and can align with the cultural heritage values outlined in bylaw 2020-047. My focus in this presentation will be on the proposed changes, their alignment with both our development goals and the impact of our properties, heritage attributes. Next slide, please. My presentation this morning will cover the following. I know much has already been talked about, but I will be brief. I'll speak about Dunbar Homes, the proposal, the heritage alteration permit, the heritage attribute, and we'll open a question and discussion period. Next slide, please. For over 30 years, Dunbar Homes has been a prominent player in the development and construction industry in the GTA, building a remarkable portfolio of diverse properties, including mid-rises, luxury townhomes, and industrial complexes. Dunbar communities are distinguished by elegant design, contemporary features, and high-quality finishes. Next slide, please.
Mr. Khan, just one thing. You can see the clock, I guess. You have a 10-minute allocation of time. You can see the clock.
Understood.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On May 25th, Dunbar Homes submitted an official plan, zoning, and bylaw amendment application for the lands initially known as 1020, 1024, 1028, 1032, 1042, 6th Line. The subject lands are located in the west line, south of Leland Avenue, abutting Elizabeth Way to the south. And this slide right here is our site plan, and I would like to make a point of clarification. I would like to note that the scope site plan that was earlier presented by Heritage Planning staff did not include the Arboretum, the relocated Arboretum, which is located east of Block B. If we can get a zoom to Block B as possible. In any case, that is a relocated Arboretum, a total of 3,800 square feet. And of course, our arborist, as indicated in our HIA impact assessment, that a number of indigenous trees will be replanted. The proposal is a standard condo with shared common elements. The development application consists of 57 unit townhouses, semi-detaches, over 8 residential blocks. Access to development will be facilitated by east and north private way, which will bisect 6 line road. In preparation for the application, we prepared a heritage impact assessment in accordance with the Town of Oakville Development Application Guidelines. The guidelines require the following to be included in it: to the property, research and analysis, statement of cultural heritage, description of proposed development, impact of development, and heritage attributes. The designated bylaw 20047 recognizes that the subject property has cultural heritage value or interest pertaining to its design and physical value, historical associated value, and contextual value. Next slide, please. This site, on the site plan, as you'll know, that we have the first heritage attribute on the frontage of the driveway, having rubble stone posts, the rubble stone walls on the other side, which are angled inwards towards the laneway. Next slide, please. As you can see, no alterations are proposed. The rubble stone gate posts and the walls will be conserved. Next slide. The second attribute I'd like to discuss is the entrance of the property from 6 line, formed by a long linear driveway that connects the formal circle in front of the existing dwelling. The length of the driveway is lined with Norwich Spruce tree on either side, which form, as discussed earlier, a Y opening around the top of the formal circle. The formal circle is located in the front of the dwelling on the subject property and contains a mature Mary beech tree in its center. Next slide. The formal entrance drive line on both sides with mature spruce planted in short intervals, forming the Y-shaped path to open the formal circle at the main entrance. The linear portion of the entrance drive will be retained, and almost 67 of these indigenous trees, the Norway spruce trees, will be kept. It will be retained and used for active transportation route, a multi-use path. The Norway spruce trees, which line at the laneway portion of the entrance drive, will be conserved, with the exception of one tree, which has been recommended by the arborist for removal as a dead or hazardous tree. Development has been designed to respect the tree protection zone of these trees as provided in the tree preservation plan. As a result, 67, again, trees will be kept in the Y. Formal circle is proposed to be removed, in part to accommodate the crossing of an internal road through the site that will serve as a fire route. The Norway spruce trees, which form the Y opening around the formal circle, are also proposed to be removed. The entrance drive is proposed to physically terminate at the end of the laneway and include an amenity space and its location with a break in vegetation to support the visual connection between the dwelling and entrance drive. Next slide, please. To the rear of the dwelling, there's a terrace on the southeast along the valley that is accessed by footpath with a low stone wall. Terrace area. The designated bylaw that recognizes the placement of the specimen division and trees in these areas on the subject property is adjacent to the house, the ginkgo, bilboa, magnolia, in the formal drive circle, in the arboretum east of the open lawn, oak, beech, birch, and maple, and the ginkgo bilboa tree identified as tree 1160 on the tree preservation plan. The designated bylaw also recognizes a beech tree and a birch tree in the arboretum area. As per the TPP, the tree preservation plan, there are only 2 beech trees on the subject property, and one is located to the north of the dwelling. The conservation plan only recognizes the beech tree within the formal circle. Therefore, the inclusion of the beech tree in the discussion of the arboretum is likely an error or no longer exists. No alterations with terrace will be conserved. Next slide. Next slide, please. Actually, you can go back to the previous slide, please. You can see in the site plan here, we've highlighted the arts and craft residential, the ginkgo beech tree, and the terrace area. In the next few slides, I will go over each of these heritage attributes. beginning with the terrace. Next slide. The terrace of land along the river valley acts as the rear of the residents along an earthen footpath lined by a low intermittent stone wall will not be altered. The terrace will be conserved. Next slide. The existing single detached dwelling is located at the terminus of the driveway on the property. The dwelling has 2.5-story stone foundation and was constructed in the arts and crafts style. The building has a gambrel roof intersected with cross gambrel. The upper stories of the building have wood shingle cladding on the front elevation, while the remainder of the building is clad with vinyl siding. The building has a somewhat centralized chimney and irregularly shaped window opening. No alteration with arts and craft residential will be made and will be kept for its continuous residential purpose. Next slide. As mentioned earlier, the designated bylaw recommends the placement of specimen deciduous and coniferous trees in 3 areas on the property, one of which includes the ginkgo and beech tree. The beech tree in the formal circle is intended to be conserved. This tree has been identified as injured in our tree preservation plan. However, provided the mitigation measures of a TPP are sufficient, we plan to keep the tree and conserve it. Secondly, the ginkgo biloba tree and magnolia tree will also be conserved. The ginkgo biloba tree has been identified as injured again in the tree preservation plan, and we look forward to also with proper mitigation efforts to keep the tree.
Mr. Khan,
People shall be conserved.
Mr. Khan, is there much more that you need to say to us? I give you a little bit of latitude because there's obviously some difficulty getting slides changed back and forward, which eats a bit into your time. But do you need much more time?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would probably need another 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes only. I only have 3 more slides.
I think that would be fair, given, as I said, that there's some technical issues with waiting for slides to come and go. So I'll give you another 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next slide, please. In this last set of slides, I'd like to talk about the Arboretum. This area comprises a collection of coniferous and deciduous trees, species, in a relatively open and level area to the east of the residence. Next slide. The Arboretum includes very coniferous and deciduous trees, including several red oak, sugar maple trees. 2 of the red oak trees are supposed to be removed. However, there will be 1 red oak tree maintained in the Arboretum, the new relocated Arboretum. The sugar maple trees will be preserved in the Arboretum, although not all the species found within the Arboretum specifically listed in a designated bylaw will remain. The species of trees found within the Arboretum are found elsewhere on site and will be retained in the development, with the exception of the soft pine trees, which are recommended for removal in the tree preservation plan and are recognized as an invasive species. The proposal also includes the creation of a new Arboretum on site, as discussed earlier, and the function of the Arboretum having a range of tree species on site, which will be well maintained. Next slide. The designated bylaw identifies vistas along the entrance drive and views across the lawn to the south and over the creek valley to the west, as you can see through this image with the overlook. Next slide. The orientation of the house closing on the vistas along the entrance drive, the placement of windows to take advantage of the view and the views of across the lawn to the south over the creek valley to the west. The framing of the views at the Y opening and the entrance drive from the dwelling will be altered by the removal of the Norway spruce tree to form the Y opening and by the removal of the formal circle, which centers along the dwelling from the laneway. The view from the laneway of the dwelling will be narrowed by the placement of units 52 and 51, Given that these units are within the existing Norway spruce line that frames the current view, nonetheless, the adjacent townhouse block will continue to frame and funnel views through this area, given the angle towards the laneway and open towards the dwelling.
Okay, Mr. Khan, that's the time up.
Uh,
I'm sure there will be questions and you will have the opportunity to expand on some of the information you have for us today. So I'll pass it on to questions. Anyone have questions? Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask a question because I have taken a quick look at the Dunbar portfolio and I see there are some beautiful medium density housing solutions. And my question is, for this site, because of the prevalent cultural landscape inherent in the site, was there a consideration for an option that included a medium density concentration of housing in one area of the lot, potentially the, I think it was the northeastern side, the one that's adjacent to 6th Line and the QEW, and then retaining the existing, much of the existing cultural landscape?
Did you hear that, Mr. Khan? Yep.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. Our original development included 81 townhouse development. Through workshopping, listening to resident feedback, we eventually went down to a more narrow 57 development, resulting in an overall 30% less dense development. And we obviously taken the time to consider feedback, and our view is that overall there is a moderate impact to the entrance side, a minor overall impact to the landscape design, and a minor impact to the entrance drive vistas as well, and the entire heritage operation.
Okay, Jerry?
May I, Mr. Chair, just to clarify? So my question is, was medium density considered, not single units, but a larger density on a more concentrated part of the site considered? Because you have a great opportunity here for medium density, especially with the all the policies in place, provincial and federal governments and such. There's a great opportunity here for medium density, a higher density than what is shown, so that you concentrate the density for housing. You get as many units as you had in your original proposal on a much smaller footprint of land. That is the question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. During our design phase, several design opportunities were considered from medium to low density. I think the current proposal sufficiently addresses a lot of the housing concerns related to the province, given the tight proximity to transit and its accessibility. The current form of density was the best option available. It provides folks a more affordable townhouse development.
I'm going to have to leave at 11:30, so you'll be chair. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Yes, Bob.
Have you ever considered taking out houses 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53 and 54? It seems to me that those are the units that make the most negative impact on the cultural heritage nature of this site.
Through you, Mr. Chair, a very good question. The units, 45, 52, and as you discussed, they do have a minor impact on the heritage conservation. as I discussed earlier, most of these impacts can be mitigated. A lot of the trees, as discussed earlier, are being relocated at the new Arboretum. And in fact, Terrace, which is also part of the designated bylaw, that will not be impacted. So with the units you described, they will have zero impact on Terrace. The impact on the trees can be mitigated through relocating them in the new Arboretum. Thank you.
Okay, Bob?
Sorry, are you saying that there would be no trees saved by removing those parts of the development?
No, point of clarification, what I'm saying is that the impact of the current units that you described are minimal. That there are actually no impact to the terrace views, and the trees which are impacted, the trees that are impacted are being mitigated through replanting these trees in the new Arboretum.
Planting of saplings is not going to mitigate the huge loss of canopy that is occurring through this development. So I don't accept that's a quid pro quo.
Okay, Bob?
And certainly the view, the Y, the circle could remain. We wouldn't have that loss of Norway spruce in the Y. So I would like you to consider in your plans taking those units out to have a very positive impact on the negative impact of the development.
Okay, Bob, that's a good comment. Brenda?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you. I just have a couple of questions, just to follow up on Mr. Laughlin's question. I noticed in taking a quick summary of the number of trees, I understand that there are 30 trees that are going to be removed as part of the proposal, and that I understand from your diagram that there's 5 trees to be put into the reduced arboretum space. So, is that correct?
That's roughly correct, yes. There's around, as you mentioned, 30 trees on the Arboretum, and also 116 trees that are going to be kept.
100. Could you say that number again, please, Mr. Khan?
Sure thing. There will be a total of 116 trees that will be kept, which is listed on the arborist report, part of the appendix of the heritage permit.
Okay, so you're saying 116 will be kept, 30 will be removed, which is in addition to the 1 tree which has to be removed because it's dead, and then 5 will be replacing the 30 that are removed, that are part of the cultural heritage landscape. Is that correct?
Part of the cultural heritage lands includes, I think, the ginkgo, the magnolia, and the beech tree. Yep. They will be kept. So, for example, what was discussed earlier was the potential for these trees being injured. And our belief is through a very careful construction process that we do plan to conserve the tree.
Okay. So one other question that I asked of staff, and staff suggested that I ask you, how many square feet is the arts and crafts home on the property?
At the moment, through you, Mr. Chair, at the moment, I do not have that information available to me. I am more than happy to forward that information immediately after this meeting.
Okay. In your experience with the many other properties that you've developed, for a home that is you know, we can see it's taking up the space, the massing it takes on the site. Would a home like that normally be built without any garage space?
That's a good question. I think part of the challenge with this development is recognizing that there is additional visitor space as well too. I think certainly it's up to the owner, and you know, a lot of this is market determined about having those parking spaces. I know earlier there was a conversation about those 2 additional parking spaces in front of the houses, right? And how may that affect the wide opening and the views, right? You know, generally when I'm at the site and I view the site, there are always parks. So I think, you know, if the question is in regards to the views, I don't think our proposal would really change the outcome that is currently existing.
One last quick follow-up question. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Will there be any restoration work or repairs done on the house as part of the project?
That's a good question as well. I think ultimately what we intend to do is continue to keep the function of the house, which is to remain for residential use. We like to keep the house in a good condition. Certainly having, you know, what we made clear is we have no intention to make changes with the house, right? Our proposal does not affect the arts and crafts at all. And we intend to continue that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Carrie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Khan, I'm your neighbor. I live in one of the houses that's referenced in your report, so of course I have a keen interest in your development application. And I would have to say that I'm broadly supportive of your application. At the site visit that I did attend, we had provided feedback on changes we would like to see, including maintaining the Y opening, potentially removing townhouse 51 and 52 because it does impact on the views to the house. Can you tell me which changes, if any, were made to the site visit feedback? Because this application appears to be exactly the same with no consideration given to the site visit feedback. Is that correct?
Well, firstly, I want to thank you, and we appreciate that you at least are supportive of the application. As you may be aware, the application is currently with the township. It has been refused. I think there are plans to reconsider the application in the future, but because our heritage permit application is in tandem with our official plan and zoning bylaw application, it's a bit more complicated to take recommendations and make changes right away, right? We certainly are going to work with the township and enter in good faith in resolving a lot of these issues. I think particularly with the arboretum, with relocating trees, we do feel that we are our impacts are minimal, and that for example, the Y opening, although will not have the Y opening, the linear part of the entrance will be retained, and it will be used as the multi-use space, right? That'll be open to residents. It'll be open to folks outside the community that will be able to enjoy the space.
So the answer would be no then.
You okay, Kerry?
At this moment, no.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, Bob?
Could I ask you about one of the trees, tree 1179, which is a red oak that I estimate, well, it's reported as 140 centimeters at DBH, which if you take a growth factor of about 1 centimeter in 2 years is a 280-year-old tree. And that appears to me to be not at all in the building envelope. So why would you take that down?
For that specific tree, I'd have to look back at the arborist report, but what I can tell you is that any recommendation for removing the tree have been through a professional arborist, and the recommendation of removing them would be because that tree is hazardous. And given the age of the tree, I'm going to take a guess here that it is likely more hazardous, and thus would be recommended by our for safety concerns. Because the development is going to include a more densely populated area than what is currently there, I understand the potential of a fallen tree or a tree being struck, particularly a much more older tree, can have real negative impact.
The arborist report evaluation shows the trunk to be fair, the crown structure to be good, and the crown vigor to be good. So it doesn't sound like a tree that's going to fall down too quickly.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification, and that duly noted.
Okay, good. Are there any other questions of the applicant? Nope. Okay, thank you, Mr. Khan. You can stay and listen in, but thank you for your presentation. Okay, just some little bit of housekeeping. I have to leave at 11:30 on the button. I'll be handing over to Jerry as vice chair, and she will finish off this item and the other items that are on our agenda. And then I hope to see you all later after the meeting's over, okay? So that's good. So let me just ask then, is there any discussion on what we've just heard within the committee? We have a staff recommendation in front of us, and are people ready to deal with that staff recommendation? George?
If not, I'm prepared to move the motion.
So George has moved this. Okay, yes, so okay then. So I'm asking that question because I'm going to go now and hand it over to Jerry, okay? So Jerry, there's the balance of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any comments then? We have Jason.
Thank you. Really, it's a question, have I got the opportunity to speak to staff at this point, or have I lost the opportunity? No.
No, this is confined to the board
Okay.
right now for
That's just
comments.
between us then.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Jason.
It's what next? If we as a group say no, what happens next?
There would have to be another motion.
The motion would pass, the application is denied, and it goes back to staff.
Just a point of clarification, the motion would go to council,
Oh, yes, would go to council first.
not to staff.
Yes, we are an advisory committee, so we make no standing decisions. So it does go to council, and then if it passes, it goes back to the applicant to reapply. Any further comments?
No, we've got the motion.
So we have a motion on the floor. George?
Yes.
All in favor of the motion?
No against.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is that the heritage permit application, HP 039, for alteration and removal of cultural heritage landscape attributes at 1042 6th line, as attached in Appendix B to the report dated December 5th, 2023, from Planning Services, be denied. All in favor?
You want opposed? You want disopposed? Anyone opposed?
Anyone opposed? No? Motion is passed and carried. Thank you. We have number 5, information items. And that is Sue, 5.1, Heritage Conservation District Update. It's in your hands, Sue. Carry on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To be very brief, we actually have the revised draft of the Old Oakville Heritage Conservation District study going live on the town's website today. I'm incredibly pleased to announce this. You'll recall that when we presented the item to Heritage Oakville, there was a recommendation that we seek further input from the Residents Association regarding the character areas. We have spent quite a bit of time doing that exact thing, and I'm very pleased with the end result. And so the link will be shared with everybody who has signed up for updates on that project, including everyone on this committee later today, to let you know that it is up and going. And then very briefly, the next phase has already launched, the creation and drafting of the plan and guidelines. I spoke with the consultants yesterday. We are all busy working in the background and hope to have a draft of those for you in hopefully February 2024. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sue. That is good news. Always happy to hear that news. So our next item is, oh, yes. Councillor, you have a question or a comment for the great
Yes,
work
Madam
here?
Chair. Just a question in terms of next steps. My internet's a little unstable right now. It's to further consultation, and the draft is being prepared, and the timing is February for it to come back to committee and then to council. Is that the work plan for that, Susan?
Oh, through you, Madam Chair. Nope, that's a little bit rushing things. So we've got the study, which is going online, hopefully today. That study will be coming forward to Planning and Development Council for consideration and hopefully approval at the end of January. The first draft of the plan and guidelines for Old Oakville, we hope to release for public comment in February 2024, but there will be a lengthy process of consultation once that draft is released. So we've already had our first public meeting back in October to hear what people wanted to have in that plan. So we're busy working on that. And once it is launched in February 2024, there will be a series of public consultation opportunities, stakeholder events. It will have to go to a formal public meeting in front of Planning and Development Council in the spring before it can come to Heritage Oakville and then back to Council for final approval. So there are many steps and many opportunities for public consultation coming forward in 2024.
I appreciate the clarification and the details and the amount of work that your area is putting into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item, any further questions? Susan, the next item, 5.2, designation project update, and that's Carolyn.
Yes, thank you. Very, very quick update. No designations, as you saw today on the agenda, but we'll have a number of more in January, so working away as usual. I'm happy to answer any questions, but nothing more than that. Thanks.
Any questions of Carolyn? No? Thank you, Carolyn. The last item, 5.3, delegated heritage permits, August to November 2023. And I see here that we have a recommendation that the information items be received. Bob?
We'll need a mover, Madam Chair.
Pardon?
We'll need a mover on that motion, Madam Chair.
Bob is moving the receipt of the information. And David is seconding. All right. Motion carried. Thank you. So we have the date and time of the next meeting is Tuesday, January 30th in the new year, 2024, at the same time in these chambers at 9:30 a.m. And the meeting, these items will be presented forward at the meeting of council on January 22nd, 2024. If anyone has any concerns or comments to bring forward at that time. And this concludes our meetings of this year, and I'd like to carry forward Drew's favorite little gratitude moment of thanking everybody on this committee for the gift of their time, and wishing everyone happy holidays, and looking forward to our Christmas lunch. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Move to adjourn. Brenda is moving to adjourn. All in favor? Motion is carried. Happy holidays.